Welcome, Karl, Professor Widerquist. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Just putting the guitar down.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you. Let's see. I would like to introduce to our audience who Karl is. And Karl has an incredible biography. He also has a Wikipedia. You can check him out. He has a website, which I will give you the link later. Karl is a professor of philosophy at Georgetown University. How do you say that? Qatar?
In Qatar. Well, there's dozens of ways to say it. Qatar is correct as anything.
Qatar.
If you want to say it the Arabic
like a
way.
guitar. Oh, okay. Yeah. So Karl is I would say, expert, right, in universal basic income, the theory and idea. And Karl has not only one PhD, he has 2 PhDs. And we can talk about that later on. And Karl also, I discover when I read his Wikipedia, he's a musician as well. So I asked him if he can play for us, and he did. Thank you so much.
You really put me on the spot there. I wasn't expecting that.
I just told him like 5 minutes ago before we are here. I said, can you play for us? Yes. So now, Karl, yeah, you're also a blogger. You have your own blogger. It's called Independent Ring. How do you say that?
Independentarianism. Or Independentarianism is the name of the blog.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Hi, Nick. Our audience, my young friend, is down there. Thank you for showing up. Now, so let's first talk about your background, because I already realized like you have been so many places. You were born in Chicago, you raised in Michigan. Now you live in New Orleans, but you have a job in Arabic country. So tell us a little bit about your personal, your journey. Where have you been? And in a short version.
Okay, sure. I was born in Chicago in 1965. My parents moved to a little town in Michigan in 1969 when I was 4. Cassopolis, Michigan. It's famous as the birthplace of kitty litter. Actually, it was a big spot on the Underground Railroad, so it should be more famous for that. When I lived in Michigan till I graduated from college. I lived back in Chicago for a while. Lived in California for a year, looking for something to do. Went to New York to go to graduate school. And I was there through most of the 90s, between graduate school and working in upstate New York at the Levy Institute. Then I decided that economics was not the most important thing to me, because I studied economics because I was concerned about social justice. And I thought to make a just society, you've got to know what works economically. And I thought our biggest problem was poverty. Now, but after studying economics for all these years, I realized that economically, it's really not difficult to eliminate poverty. All you need is a basic income. It is fully fundable. There's not a whole lot more to say. You can calculate the cost and calculate the evidence of what's it going to do or not, but it will eliminate poverty and it is affordable. Problem solved. The barriers to it are ethical. People thinking that we shouldn't do this, disagreement whether we should or should not do this. And so I decided to go at that, and I went to Oxford and got a PhD in political theory to look at the ethical aspects of what is a just social policy. So that brought me to England, where I lived in England for about 6 years, minus 1 year that I spent at the Murphy Institute in New Orleans, where just as I was finishing that job, I met my wife. So I've been long distance there ever since. I worked at the University of Reading in the UK briefly, and I then moved to Qatar, where I've been since 2009. So it'll be 11 years in August, although I've been away since December on sabbatical. And with COVID, I don't know if I'm going back in the fall or not. But I work there and make my home in New Orleans. So I'm constantly flying back and forth.
Wow, what a life. That's great. Yeah. So so tell us a little bit, when you say Qatar, it's like it's so foreign to me, in the middle of the, Arab country, right? So how did one first landed such a job there? Isn't it? So tell me a little bit about how did you got involved with that institution?
Well, the academic job market is not like most other job markets because here, like say here in New Orleans, for example, there are maybe 10, maybe 12 political philosophers with jobs. And I know most of them. So you can't just look in your town. Oh, what are the openings? It could be 20 years before there's an opening in your town. So you do often a regional or a national or a worldwide job search. And it's easy to find. It's as easy to find the job ads for places far away as it is close to home. So when I was finishing up at the University of Reading and I was looking for jobs, the job in Qatar, I got that one, and I also got, I was offered a Leverhulme fellowship back at the University of Reading. But this job, it just paid so much more because Qatar is this natural resource-rich Persian Gulf country.
Oil.
It's a former British protectorate. It's very small, about the size of Massachusetts. It has one big city, and most of the rest is desert with some little towns dotted around it. So it's essentially a city-state.
Yeah.
But they, in 1940, they discovered some oil, not a huge amount. But then in the 1990s, they discovered huge natural gas deposits. And since then, they've gone from being a little bit behind the other Gulf states to being the wealthiest country per capita in the world. And being that wealthy and that quick, they hired lots and lots of foreign workers. So now there are about 9 foreign workers for every citizen. And I'm one of them. And so they offered so much money. We call it the golden handcuffs because you say, oh, I'll make this money for a couple of years, and I'll save up a bunch of money and then go home. And then you're like, but every job that I look at back in the US or the UK or the English speaking world where I'd be most likely to move, all those jobs are like, what a big pay cut. Wow, I have to take a pay cut. So I've been working in Qatar ever since.
Good for you. Let me know if they need a violas there.
Actually, they do have the Doha Symphony.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there are working classical musicians there.
Oh yeah. Speaking of symphony, so tell me a little bit. I'm a musician. I'm a violist. I play the violin, viola, and tell me a little bit about your musical training. Everybody knows you're a professor in economics and politician or whatever. So tell us a little bit your musical path.
Well, I had a little bit of formal training in school, like piano lessons and learning music theory as part of the jazz band and as part of the marching band at my school. But my love has always been various versions of rock music, from classic rock to punk rock and alternative and stuff like that. And so I started learning the bass guitar when I was in high school, and I played in some cover bands in high school and college. And then when I moved to New York to get and one of the people that I played in the cover band with, we initially, as soon as I graduated from college and he graduated from high school, we started a band with a couple of other of our friends. And we broke up after about 2 months or 3 months. And he went on to be he went on to be a professional working musician who just released his, I don't know, his 15th album or something. His latest song is called "What in the World," and it came out just before all of this stuff with George Floyd and all these protests and stuff. It's called "What in the World" by Michael McDermott. Look it up on YouTube. It's a great song. And if you look at this guy's back catalog, it took till like his 5th or 6th album where I could judge him not is this young guy I used to play with in a band, but actually is unbiasedly just as any other musician. His stuff is great. And the guy's, now he's approaching 50, or maybe he is 50, and his music just keeps getting better. It's amazing. So anyway, I played with him for a while. Then I played with a sort of Celtic punk band called Remember Alice in New York City when I was there getting my PhD. So I was at a PhD. It was like PhD program on some days and punk band on other days. That was a fun time in my life. Then I did a solo album, and since then I'm trying to keep up on it, but I haven't written a new song since I moved here. So I haven't written a new song. I must have written or co-written like over 100 songs in my life. But the number that I could actually pick up and play without like going back and rehearsing them all is pretty small. I miss doing more music, but I had these books I needed to write, and I really want to write these books. And I had to hold down a job and teach classes and do my research and write these books. And I had to specialize away from something. So I haven't done a lot of music lately, but I do try to pull it out now and then.
Yeah, that's great. Music, people, if they keep playing music, right, any musical instrument, it's good for their brain. Because you have like right hand, left hand, you have to read music, or you don't read music, you have to listen. There's so many facts of a different mechanism going on at the same time. So it's a really great brain booster.
Well, I just finished my 9th book.
Oh, tell us about it. What is it?
Well, first of all, I've got 2 more books that I really need to write.
Yeah.
And there's other books that I'd kind of like to write and other articles I'd kind of like to write, but those are the 2 big ones. Yeah. When I finish those 2, maybe I'll have a little more time for music. So maybe I'll get back to it then. Yeah.
So you wrote, so far you have you wrote 8 books now, right? The 9th was coming. So
9th one's coming out by the end of the year. And I think some of them I only wrote parts of. There are actually only 2 books that I've written all by myself. A couple have collaborated with one other person, and a couple have been anthologies or edited volumes where everybody writes a chapter or 2. But that all adds up to 9 books.
So what's the latest one you are about to publish? Is about what?
It's called The Prehistory of Private Property. It's on Edinburgh University Press. It's a second book I've done with Grant McCall on Edinburgh University Press. The first one was called Prehistoric Myths in Modern Political Philosophy. And this is the second one in the Prehistoric Myths series. It's called The Prehistory of Private Property. It is about the origin and development of the private property rights system, what existed before, and how people live when they don't live in a private property rights system. As traditional peoples, as indigenous peoples and most peoples did for 200,000 years, until 2 violent movements established what we now know as the private property rights system. The enclosure movement in Europe and the colonial movement outside Europe took, over the last 500 years, transformed a world of more traditional, more communal and common and collective property rights that were often very complex, and changed those into this monolithic idea that property is sole and despotic dominion over the external things of the earth. And people portray that as a natural development. They say that people appropriate property and that a person will naturally go into a woods and clear the land and start a farm and therefore gain the right to own that land individually without sharing it with anyone. This does not happen. The only people who do that are people who are taking lands from indigenous peoples who have been defeated by colonial armies. And for the most part, that's not even how colonial governments establish property. They come in by taking property over and putting one of their people on the head of the indigenous people and calling him the owner. Even in Europe, where usually it is a him, where the private property rights system developed, it was usually done by putting a lord on top of what had been a traditional communal farming village, calling him the owner, and then gradually reducing the rights of the people who had worked the land throughout history. And so we debunked this idea that there's something natural about private property. And in the process, we also debunked the ideas that economic equality is impossible without a sacrifice in freedom, and the idea that a system with strong, unequal private property rights is more consistent with freedom than other other property rights systems or land tenure systems. And that's what the book is about. I'm really excited about it, and it'll be out the end of this year. If you look on my blog, you can find some information about it.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Excuse me. Now, you are expert on UBI. Can you give us, or some of us have not been very knowledgeable about the subject, or know a little bit about it? And can you give us just like a one paragraph kind of a description? What is a UBI, please?
Sure. A basic income is an unconditional income that is given to every man, woman, and child who's either a citizen or a resident of a community. It's giving without any means testing, without any work requirement. It's a regular payment in the currency of the community, whatever that currency is. You get it whether or not you have other income, and whether or not you have a job, whether or not you're looking for a job, whether or not you're disabled. Maybe a disabled person will get more if they have special needs. If you get a job, then you get more money on top of this. Now, taxes are going to come out of that money of whatever property you get in order to make the whole system work. So you might pay taxes on what other income you have somewhere, but everybody has an income that is non-zero. I sometimes describe it as a market economy where income doesn't start at zero. But really, it's compatible with any economy. It could be welfare capitalism where income doesn't start at zero, or socialism where income doesn't start at zero. But the idea of basic income is income doesn't need to start at zero. We don't need to threaten every single worker in the economy with homelessness and malnutrition and lacking for their basic needs in order to get them to work. We can give them a basic income, make them free, give them the power to say no to participating, and then we can discipline the employers and make it so they have to give people good wages and good working conditions in order to attract them to work. So it's an economy where income doesn't start at zero.
Any other countries in this world is having a substantial UBI right now? Not yet,
no. Alaska has a very small UBI, but not large enough to live on. Now, so technically it is a UBI, but it's small and variable. It's usually between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, which of course is way too little to live on. And lately it's been chipped away at by the government, so it's gotten even smaller. And in Iran, they've had a sort of a small UBI-like thing, but not quite. There have been some one-time UBIs for governments in recession, but there's really never been a true UBI in the world, and it's been studied. It's been studied all over the place. There have been many experiments on it, and in Kenya, the biggest pilot project is going on right now, where an NGO, a charity, is giving it to about 10,000 people A small UBI, but in Kenya, a little bit of money goes a long way. Small UBI to about 10,000 people in Kenya, that's probably the closest thing to a true UBI that's really being tried in the world today. But it's been studied, and it's time we try this, because we've tried the conditional system since Bismarck in the 1880s, and the conditional system has never eliminated poverty. So it's time to start a universal basic income.
Yeah. Now, I'm a hardcore Yang, and I did a lot of canvassing for Andrew Yang. And Andrew Yang wanted to use called a valid added tax to fund this UBI.
Value added tax, yes.
Yeah, in which each adult can receive $1,000 per month. And how would you down UBI if you had a power, if you are a president today? Like, where's the money come from? I like Andrew Yang. I met him once. He quoted me on his campaign website, and at another point, he called me one of the godfathers of basic income. So it'd be hard for me to dislike him just for that. But also, I read his book, and I've listened to some of his talks on TV. I'm really impressed with. He's a guy whose heart is totally in the right place. When he says, humanity first, he means that is that we got to look at what's good for humanity as a whole, and it takes a really simple problem solving approach to everything. I kind of envy that. Well, that's his role. My role is it's not going to come up in this interview, but lots of times we'll get the very same question, and I will answer it with like moral indignation. And he'll just answer, well, here's the problem, let's solve it, and this solves it. Look, and I'm like, you really want to force people with starvation to get them to do what you want? So I'll be really moralizing it, and he'll be really treating it as problem solving. So I like Andrew Yang a lot. I didn't like all of his policies. And his version of UBI, I thought was a huge step in the right direction, but I prefer the first step to go a little farther. The biggest problem with this version of UBI was that it left out children. So it was $12,000 a year for all adults, which means a single man with no kids would get $12,000. Whereas a single mother with 3 kids would also get $12,000. Now, she could choose to keep the existing system, so she might be better. But the existing system is not better than that in most states, as Andrew Yang well knows. But it's a single mother with 3 kids is going to be pretty far in poverty with only $12,000 a year. And the poorest demographic in the United States is single mothers with children. And it's also the most costly demographic, because if you grow up in poverty, it will scar you for life. The people who grow up in deep poverty and then go on to be hugely successful people and not have other severe problems are pretty small. They do happen, but very many times they don't, and no amount of money that you can give somebody when they become adult makes up for this. So I really wish it included children. Now, he was financing it, then to get to the financing side of Yang's proposal, he was financing it largely, but not completely, with a value-added tax, which is like a sales tax. It's a little bit better than a sales tax. And I don't want to get into the technical aspects of it now. What some economists have argued, now a value-added tax, like a sales tax, is a tax on when you buy stuff. Now, that is, and what was it, a 10% sales, a value-added tax, 20%? I don't even remember exactly what a figure was. But so you get your basic income, and then you go to spend stuff, but a lot of that's going to go to this new value-added tax. So it's actually going to reduce the effective value of the basic income that you're getting. Now, what Yang and my colleague, who I'm sure you know, Scott Santens, what they argue is that the research shows that 55% of the value-added tax actually comes out of corporate profits.
It's only 45% of it that ends up getting passed on to the consumer in higher prices. I haven't looked into that. I've not looked into that, so I got to plead ignorance. I'll take their word for it on that. But still, that 45% is going. That 45% of the 20% of the value-added tax is going to eat into the value of the basic income for that. So I'd like less focus on value-added tax and more focus on wealth tax. Yang doesn't think wealth tax will work. I think it can if we have a better wealth tax than we've had in the past. Also, rent and resource taxes are, I think, the best way to go. The most efficient tax is just to tax the value of resources that people hold. You tax the land value, but not the building value. So you give people every incentive to build things on the land and improve it. But you charge them on the thing that they just simply own, the earth. There are many other taxes that are like that. Taxes on resource extraction industries, taxes on pollution, treating the Federal Reserve not as something that supports banking profits, but takes profits for itself and treats the banks as customers and extracts as much value as it can. That could raise billions, if not trillions of dollars yearly, treating being the government just creating a nonprofit that supports bankers' profits. And there are many other things that the government just gives away for free that we need to reverse, such as the broadcast spectrum. The government divides the broadcast spectrum into property, and it, instead of selling it to the highest bidder, it gives some to the TV companies, some to the radio companies, some to the cell phone companies, some to other kinds of broadcast companies. They all just get it for free, and then they sell it back to us at a profit. That's the way the government works now. If we stop all of these giveaways that we're giving to the wealthy, that's going to finance a huge amount of basic income, and we might not even need a value-added tax.
What is the difference between land usage tax from property tax now?
Okay, a property tax is the total real estate value of your land and whatever you build on it. Mm-hmm. A land value tax is the value of a vacant lot on that spot, and that's a huge difference. So take the Empire State Building. It's 103 stories tall, if I remember my stats. 103 stories tall. Building on that, you've added a huge amount of value. However, it is also on 34th Street and 5th Avenue, which is some of the most valuable land in the world. Simply a vacant lot on that would be worth probably over $1 billion, or probably well over. I have no idea what it would be, but it'll be a lot of money. And the rent merely on the vacant lot would be a huge amount of money. And that vacant lot was there before any human arrived. Before the first human arrived in what's now New York City about 13 or maybe 15,000 years ago, that land was there. No one created it. No one invented it. But by creating this private property system, where people just own property and pay very little in taxes on that property, the government essentially divides the earth up to some and not to others. But by taxing the value of those resources and redistributing that value to everybody, the government makes sure that every single individual gets a share of the natural resources of the earth. Now, incentive-wise, it's better to do that with just taxing the land than the value of that vacant lot where that would be there if the Empire State Building wasn't there, than taxing the value of the whole skyscraper. Because when you have a property tax, as we do now in most of the US, you discourage people from building because they build something and their taxes go up. But if you have a land value tax, even if you build nothing, your taxes are the same. So it gives you every incentive to improve the value of that land and get it working. So people will now very often, the taxes are so low, they'll buy a vacant building or a vacant lot and just let it sit there because it's so cheap to hold on to it. And they'll say, well, the value of it's going to go up. So I'll just wait, I'll hold on to it and I'll sell it. And we have vacant buildings and vacant lots all over the country. If we had a land value tax instead of a property tax, we would change that incentive.
I see. So, now.
Oh, Peter Mancow says 10% value-added tax.
Yeah.
So on these comments here, and I should respond. So that means if the basic income, if Yang's freedom dividend is $12,000, and 10% of that goes to, it's actually 45% of 10% of that, if all of his figures are right, of what's going to get passed on to the higher prices. So that means, let's see. That means about, well, 10% of 1,000 would be, 4.5% of 1,000 would be $450. So it's going to be 450 plus 40, about 100. So about $550 out of that 12,000 a year is going to go to just paying the VAT tax right back. So it's not a huge chunk if Yang and Stanton's figures are correct, but still the value-added tax reduces the value of the basic income for the people who get it. Okay, that's answering one of the questions that I see here in the comments.
Yeah. Some people, another person, I don't know the name, called J3, says land value plus capital improvement equals property tax value.
Right, and which is a good way to put it. So land value, there's the total property tax taxes those two things, but it's really much better for the economy if you tax only the one thing, only the land value, and you tax that at the highest sustainable level, and then let people, and that way, you're taking some of our land. You say you're going to take some of our land, improve it, and sell it to people. All right, we're going to rent you that land at the market rate. We're not giving you anything for free. Then you go and build your building on it. You rent it out to people. Then whatever profits you can make reflect a little more closely what you've actually contributed rather than just the stuff that you own.
Yeah. So how's Black Lives Matters situation in your town? Your town meaning in Louisiana? Well,
I was away from Louisiana when the George Floyd got killed. And my wife said, you've got to watch this video. And it was 8 minutes and some, and I was able to watch maybe 4 minutes of it, maybe 5. I watched a little towards the beginning and a little towards the end. And it was so sad and so horrific that I couldn't sit through the whole thing. And I'm not going to force myself to. I don't want to desensitize myself to the horror of a person being murdered before my eyes. And then the protests erupted within a day or so. And I was like, I'm in this tiny little town. I'm not in New Orleans. I was in this tiny town of Morehead City, North Carolina. And there's these big protests going on in New Orleans. I wish I was home. I could do it. And I started looking online. Well, where's the nearest protest? Is there one in Raleigh and Wilmington and stuff? And that's, a long way. And I couldn't tell when they were scheduled for. And then about 2-3 days after this, I was walking down the street in Morehead City, walking my dog. And there was a Black Lives Matter protest right there in this little town of Morehead City, North Carolina. It was organized by a guy named Damar Small and his brother Lamar, his wife Becca, and some other people. Really good group of people. And they have been doing it almost every day. So what I did was, and I was walking along, me and my dog joined the protest. So my dog Happy and I, we were at the protest for like 2 or 3 hours, just hanging out. And I went back while we were there, I went back almost every day. It's a really good group of people. Check out Black Lives Matter Carteret County on Facebook if you're anywhere near them. A really good group of people. Of course, one of the heartening things about this is that unlike the Ferguson protests and unlike the Rodney King protests and the Emmett Till protest back in 1955, This one is everywhere. It's in every little town almost. My tiny hometown of Cassopolis, Michigan, which has 2,000 people, had like over 100 people come out for this. It's everywhere. And this, I think, signals a big change. This could be the most concentrated and in time and widespread in location protests in American history. I don't know how you'd measure that, but it sure seems like it, given my experience. There was a lot of, in the civil rights movement, the Vietnam War period, there were a lot of protests going on, but they were not so concentrated in a single month like this is. Right. So I did that. I went to those protests as much as I could while we were in Moorhead. And Elizabeth and I, that's my wife, Elizabeth, we got back to New Orleans Saturday night. And we were able to find a protest Sunday afternoon and go to that.
Looking for one.
Keeping out the pressure is important because our police kill too many people. Now, they kill more black people than white people. Like if you're a black person, you're 2.5 times more likely to be killed by a police officer than if you are a white person. And if you're an American Indian, you're even more likely, or Native American, you're even more likely than a black American to be killed by a police officer. However, if you are a white American, you are still far more likely to be killed by a police officer than if you are a white person in any other democratic country, in Canada, in England, in Norway, in Germany, in France, all these places, people don't get killed by police, and they keep crime down just as well as we do. So we really have to change the way policing works in this country. And it's really some simple fundamental ideas is that, first of all, we have to professionalize the police. The police aren't trained enough. And the reason we don't train the police enough is because we won't pay them enough. There are a few areas such as New York City where police make good money, but most places around the country, it starts at a very low pay, and you can't get people with good training if you pay them like that. We pay people like unskilled laborers and then expect them to be professionals, and then don't even train them. We just expect them to learn it on the job. So we need we need a smaller police force that is better trained, and then we need to take that money that we save, better trained and better paid police force, the money we trade by having smaller police force, to hire people to do things that police shouldn't be doing, the basic safety things. And when you've got a person who's a danger themselves because of a mental illness, we call the police. In most countries, they don't do this. They will have trained social workers to do these kind of things. So there's so many changes that we need to make white America should just get up and thank Black America for starting this, what's going to lead to some fundamental change, because police reform will help every single American of all races.
What do you think of this movement right now? It's called defunding police force.
Well, when I haven't read enough about something, I don't say too much about it. What they mean by defund the police is better than it sounds. Defund the police, like, okay, so we're just going to have no one to arrest criminals, is what it sounds like. At least that sounds like to most white Americans. But actually, what I've heard it described as making the police force smaller and more professional, and using that money, and also getting rid of all this militarization of the police force. No more armored tanks and armored personnel carriers and all this riot gear for police, which actually creates more tension than it solves. So you have a smaller, more professional, and more accountable police force. And then you use that money to fund things that are going to deal with the root causes of crime, and to fund other kinds of safety things that can respond to things that we use police to respond to, and most other countries don't. As my wife would say, it's not rocket science. You look at what are they doing in Japan, what are they doing in Sweden and Norway and Iceland, where hardly anybody is killed by police. Find out what they're doing and do that. That, I think, is what people mean by defund the police. Now, I'm not an expert in it, but there are plenty of experts in it. And if we want to solve the problem, there are plenty of experts we can consult, and we can solve this problem in a hurry if our people and our government get behind it.
Yeah. Karl, I have a question for you. You're so knowledgeable about so many things, economics and politics. And have you ever considered running for officer?
No. I consider Scott Santens and Andrew Yang to run for office, and maybe they'll appoint me to something. But I'm too much of a theorist to run for office. I'm busy writing this stuff. I did when I was younger think about, should I try to become a politician? But I actually, I'm somebody who spends a lot of time figuring out, researching specific ideas. And somebody who runs for office has to draw on a bunch of other people's research. Well, if they do it well, anyway. Some don't look at the research. A good person like Andrew Yang or Scott Santens, who don't do so much individual research. Scott Santens does some. Yang, I don't think does any. But they look at that research out there, and they across a broad spectrum of ideas. Santens, like me, is kind of narrowly focused, but Yang very broadly focused. Even though UBI was a major part of his candidacy, he looked at it across a lot of spectrum, and he looks at what the experts are saying. And when you get to reforming our welfare system, I hope to be one of the experts that people will include. So there's two ways I can help. We need definitely much more progressive people like the UBI caucus. There's now a caucus of people who support UBI, whereas 4 years ago, there was no such caucus. And a lot of people running for office on UBI. I think some of the more progressive members of the House of Representatives will get on board with UBI. And I hope that my research will help these people. I would, and maybe they would appoint me. Appoint me to something, but in those two ways I could help. But I think running for office would be, for me, be a huge change in gears. I'd have to become well-informed on all this stuff where I can say, well, do you fund the police? I don't know that much about it, I like being able to do that. I talk on the topics that I really know well.
Yeah.
And also running for office, I used to be in a punk band, and I got a paper trail of stuff people could vilify. I hope that if people tried to vilify stuff I wrote in the past, I could just shove that right down their throat. But I'm not sure. So I will leave that to the less confrontational people like Yang.
Yeah, it's a different species, huh? To run for officers. Yeah. I do have to give a lot of credit to Andrew Yang. He's like doing 5 events towards the end of his campaign. It's crazy, and it's so much work.
Yeah, I've met a few members of the UBI caucus other than Yang. James Felton Keith running in New York. Shavonda Newsom running at the district next to his in New York. These are both really good people. There's, I don't know how to say it, Michael Bromeyer in Kentucky. And there's so many others. Somebody mentioned Jonathan Herzog. There's so many people running for it. Hopefully some of these people are going to get in, and we can persuade some of the more progressive members of Congress to get on board with this.
Yeah, speaking with Jonathan Herzog, and tomorrow, June 23rd, is New York primary. So you guys go to vote. Okay. Yeah, you guys vote, and we're gonna vote for Jonathan Herzog. He's running for congressman.
So we have at least 3 different districts in New York City where congressional candidates are running on UBI.
Yeah, great. He's running for New York -10. He's against Nadler, which is a very established politician. And then anyway, so he's not in my district though, but I do support.
Apparently in Kentucky for the Senate, The thing about Michael Bromeyer is he was like the first major Senate candidate to
Yeah.
endorse it. But there's another candidate, Booker. I can't remember his first name. Christopher Booker, Charles Booker, who is also running to get the nomination. And then there's a mainstream candidate who's not very interesting at all. But Booker also endorsed UBI, but hasn't made it a centerpiece of his campaign the way Bromeyer has.
I see.
I'm afraid they're going to split the progressive vote. I would want one of these two people to win over the middle of the road candidate.
Yeah, someone J3 is asking you a question. How do you feel about UBI candidates for Congress?
Well, generally, if somebody likes UBI, usually they're pretty progressive, and I like them. That's not always true. There are some people who attack UBI onto an otherwise bad program, but there's less of that now. There's less of that now. There was this awful guy, this awful racist guy, Charles Murray, was for basic income. He wasn't a politician, but some politicians cited his stuff. He was for UBI, combined it with a very conservative program that I don't support. But most of these candidates who I've looked into are good people and I can support. But what I would suggest to everybody is go Google the UBI caucus, find the list of candidates, and then your candidate in your area, research them. Is their UBI a decent UBI? Is it high enough, and do they combine it with other good programs? And if they do, get behind it. But I don't know all of their names, and it'll be a smaller list after the primaries because only some of them are going to win their primaries. But I think we're going to have some decent candidates going into the fall elections.
Yeah. So,
Okay. Somebody put his name on. They can't do it phonetically online, but one of the comments, it's Mike Broihier. I think. Okay, I don't know how to say it, but Broihier. Broihier. Okay, I'm sorry, I can't say his
Mike
name.
Broihier.
Great guy.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me make a couple of announcements. This is. Wait. This link. I'm gonna put this link in our description later. It's a song. You tell us. It's a song related to UBI by punk musician from whatever Norway, or tell me. You played for me earlier.
It's a song by this Danish punk band. I'm trying to look it up now. I don't have a website for it, but it's this Danish punk band who I can't pronounce the name of the band. I'm not even going to try. I can't even pronounce the name of the song. The name of the song is partly in Danish and partly English. It's something in Danish. Danish is really hard to pronounce if you're not familiar with it. It's got these weird letters we don't even have. So you got the name of the song in Danish and then the power to say no in English. And most of the lyrics are in Danish, so I have no idea. Well, I've seen the translation, but it keeps saying power to say no over and over again. And it turns out it's all based on my book, which is called A Theory of Freedom as the Power to Say No. And this is really the core argument that I make for basic income. So that I think it's wrong to tell a person that all the resources of the earth belong to somebody else, and you can't have them unless you do what we say. That puts the privileged always in the position where they can judge the underprivileged. And the earth, nobody invented the earth. Nobody created the earth. The earth has been here. And for the first 200,000 years that people were on this earth, anybody could go out and hunt and gather fish and farm as they wanted to, and no one would stop them. It's only in the last 200 years where people have said, you can't have this until you do something for us. This idea that everybody needs to work for a living. And what will
Hold on 1 second.
Do what you're told. They don't mean work for yourself. Oh, is that the song?
Yeah, I'm playing on my phone right now. Sorry.
Power say no. Oh yeah, I love that little picture on it.
So
So
yeah, okay, I'll
yeah,
give
it's
you the
called,
link. Okay.
yeah, it is, so the song actually takes like inspiration from my book and puts it into a punk song, which is to me like one of the highest honors in my professional career, right up there with speaking at the UBI march last summer. But there's somebody who would like be inspired to write a punk song about my stuff, is really good. And that's they also take what I think is to be the most important reason for basic income is this idea that we want to always treat the least advantaged like they're bad. If you don't work, you're bad. Well, I don't know. I think if we have a basic income and people don't work, I think employers are bad for not giving them wages and working conditions enough that they want to work. Why do we always say lazy workers? We never say cheap employers. If you don't, it's a two-way street. And if you're always saying lazy workers are bad who don't take jobs, you're siding in a wage dispute with the more privileged person. You're siding with this person who has all the other advantages and will not share with them. Because of that, for the last 50 years, as we've reduced payments for disadvantaged people by gutting the welfare state, we found that most of the benefits of economic growth have gone to the top 1%, and the rest of us are hardly any better off than our parents or grandparents were in the 1970s.
Right.
That's why we need the power to say no.
Right. So thank you, audience. Thank you, Karl. I wanted to just remind you, I'm gonna update Karl's website. This song's link all in the description of the YouTube. And please, if you have not subscribed Juhl Media YouTube channel, please do. And also, Karl has a YouTube channel as well. So you just type in Karl Widerquist, and he has a YouTube channel, have several videos there, right? Spread out the year.
Yeah, I need to get more up there. That's something that my research assistants and I are going to be working on this summer.
But you have a few videos, but they are good. They're I mean, they're not like as often and posted like other vlogger or YouTuber like me. I try to, I have been doing Yang and Han and a conversation with someone special since March of this year. Today's episode is going to be the 20th for a conversation with a specialist or musician or politician or I don't know, a student or artist, a filmmaker. It's usually Monday, Wednesday. I talk to my guests for an hour and 15 minutes. Let's see, on coming Wednesday, I will be having a conversation with Wen Qian, who is a violinist, first violinist with the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra for more than 22 years. She is a phenomenal musician, and because the COVID-19, the musicians of a Metropolitan Opera Orchestra has not been paid since March.
Oh God!
Yeah,
always a little guy. It's
but they're not little though. They're not little. Metropolitan Opera Orchestra is one of the, if not the best paid orchestra in the entire world.
Well, if they're not getting paid, everybody below them aren't getting paid either.
Yes,
the janitors aren't getting paid,
yes,
and musicians in the South Bend Symphony aren't getting paid. But I bet a lot of executives are still getting paid.
Yeah, so the musicians are not getting paid, and like her situation is her husband and her both play in the orchestra. So figure that out. That's a toughie. Wow. So I'm gonna interview her on Wednesday. Okay. So thank you. So let's. I have one question. What is a reparation?
Reparations is it means something you do to repair something. Now it's relevant for politics because very often if you injure somebody, you owe them some restitution or reparations. So let's say I'm walking down the street and your car runs over my leg. It's an accident. Well, you still owe me for my leg. You got to pay for the medical bills, and maybe you got to pay me for lost wages. That's reparations. Now, now, the way that reparations are figuring in politics right now is the idea of reparations for slavery. Now, we call it reparations for slavery, but it's really not specifically for slavery. If everything was perfect in 1866 when the last slave was free till then we wouldn't need reparations for slavery. We could forgive and forget. But it is really reparations for having, first of all, you've got this race of people starting from this really low starting point because they've been denied an education up to that point and have zero property, while the people who used to own them still own all the resources, and they have no power to say no to go to these people and have to go to these people and have to get jobs. And it was intentionally set up that way. And we've had a racist system since then, from then to today, a system that biases things in favor of whites and against blacks and Native Americans and many other groups. The idea of reparations it's called reparations for slavery, but really it is a reparations for that racist system. It's got to come along with reforming that system to make it so the system is not going to continue to be biased, or else we're going to need reparations all over again. We need to create a system that is fair and equal to all races and get all of these biases out. And these biases aren't just, a lot of white people think all these biases are just people who really hate the other race. And that's what racism is just hating other people and trying to kill them or injure them or give them the worst jobs every chance you get. It's not about that primarily. That's part of it. But the biggest part of it is a system that implicitly biases advantaged people, advantaged because of their race or their class or whatever. And implicit biases in the sense that if you see a white person, you're more likely to think of them as safe, as competent, and then other people. And we have all these little implicit things that we're not aware of. Even black people will have prejudice against other black people. If you take an implicit bias test, you find black people are likely to think, oh, this white doctor is more competent than this black doctor. And that's because of this racist system. But so reparations is an idea of compensating people for all these biases that have gone against them in the past. James Felton Keith is at least one UBI politician who's connected to UBI with reparations. Now, I think to some extent, because of the colonial movement and the enclosure movement, every human being has owned some reparations from those who control the wealth of society. I think the UBI, same for everyone, is a form of reparations, but it's reparations specifically for slavery and for this race-based system. I do think that requires some kind of payments for the Native Americans and the Black Americans and maybe some other groups. Exactly how that'll work out, I don't know, but I know experts are working on this. And we can look what is wanted by reparations. How are we going to figure it out? That's something that we have to get serious. If we really want to solve the racism problem, that has to be on the table, and we have to look at what are people who want reparations, what are they demanding, and what can we do?
Or someone like your explanation.
Yeah, now I was going to post on these comments. I was going to post a song of mine, but I can't find a way that I can make a comment.
Of course you can. You just go in there. There is a comment section. You can write.
I see the comment section, but it's only comments from the audience. I don't see any comments.
No, you write first. You can write. Did you see it? Click a comment. Click comment, you write, and then after you write, I can click for you to post.
I don't see anything that says you write. I can go in the private chat.
Don't go to private chat because that's between you and me.
Okay,
so
but
you click.
But private chat, I see a little place where I can write. But in the public chat, the live comments, I don't see a little
public
place.
Chat. Yeah, in the bottom. Did you see chat?
No, not at the bottom.
Okay, scroll your thing.
Yeah,
scroll your whole thing.
The
Did you see a thing called chat?
I see private chat and live comments, but I do not see a thing called chat.
Yeah, there is a blue button all the way to the bottom of the thing. do you see other people making comment? Like
Yes,
on
I
the
do.
right hand
The
side?
very bottom one is very bottom one is in blue, but
and you
there's
can
no button.
in the very, so the last message is by Paul, Poe.
Yes.
Right? He said great way. And then go underneath there, you can write.
There's nothing under there.
That's weird.
I've scrolled all the way to the bottom.
Weird.
There's nothing on my screen that's below that. I don't know why. But
maybe,
I put the link in the private chat if you just want to cut and paste that.
I don't know if I could. Try private chat. Yeah. If I don't know if I can bring write in a private chat. And then
private chat.
So yeah, try that. So yeah. And yeah. Now I'm gonna ask a question. You don't have to answer. Last election, who did you vote?
Last election, 2016.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me tell you. Everything for me is a long story. It's hard for me to get. It's hard for me to give a short answer. I was teaching in Qatar.
Yeah.
At the time. And I was up all night watching the returns, and then I had to go teach class, and then I had to go on Al-Jazeera to talk about the election.
Yeah.
And I had to leave immediately after class. And I was in class. I had a class of 16 students and myself. I think it was 15 women and 1 man. And most of I would say about half the women were wearing headscarves, not veils, but headscarves. A lot of conservative Muslim people, but also people from around the world in the classroom.
Right.
And we couldn't, it was hard to go on with regular class. We were talking about this. So one woman in the class said, okay, I want to ask a question to the whole class. She said, how many people voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary? And all the hands went up, including mine. And then she said, how many people voted for Hillary in the general? And all the hands went up, or were supported them. That most of them couldn't vote because it wasn't American. But how many supported Hillary in the general? And everybody's hands went up. I couldn't believe, in all the diverse views that I had in there, their views about the American president were exactly the same. I think there's a lot of animosity between Yang supporters and Bernie supporters, which I don't think should be there. They're both very progressive candidates. I think Yang is a little more progressive because it's UBI instead of guaranteed job, but a guaranteed job is so much better than what we have. And Bernie Sanders wanted to really increase the generousness of our conditional welfare state. That would move it something a little more like basic income, not a true basic income, but he's moving in the right direction. He was a good candidate. Hillary Clinton. I didn't love Hillary Clinton. She had a lot of baggage, but she wasn't Donald Trump. She wasn't a person that was going to separate children at the border, or a person who was going to really increase the racist nature of our system, or give huge tax cuts to the wealthiest people, as Trump has done. I mean, Trump has done really terrible things. In the primaries, we've got to try to get more progressive candidates and take over the Democratic Party and make it a progressive party. But if we fail to do that, I think the smart move is to get a Democrat. To think that you have a third option other than the lesser of two evils is to pretend that America is a democracy. And America is not a democracy. I apologize for voting for Democrats in the general election because usually they're not nearly progressive enough. But our system mathematically shuts out third parties. We need ranked choice voting and or proportional representation, and then we can have more choices. But until then, we got to deal with the fact this is not a democracy. I'm given two choices. I'm going to take the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, that's what my husband said. Take the less of two evils at the general. Anyway, so yeah, I was able to copy your link, and what is this link? It's your website.
It's a link to my song.
Oh, okay.
The song is actually by me. The other one was a song that was about me. This one, the song is by me. Now, the one that was about me was actually political. This song really isn't political at all, but I don't know. You asked about my music. I'm going to get some of my music.
Yeah. So before we do I was just asking my audience if they have any questions for you. Do you want to cover anything I have not asked you? I'm sure you have a lot of things you want to talk about.
Oh.
But we're ending somewhere, in like 10 minutes.
I can talk all day. I can talk all day. I don't have anything specifically I want to add. I do want to thank you for a very different interview.
Yeah.
Nobody asked about my past as a musician or asked me to play a song or this personal stuff. People are like, okay, Karl, you wrote this article. Let's talk about this article.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate the chance to do something different.
Yeah. I haven't asked you one question I always usually do is how did we meet?
Oh, well, we met at the the Basic Income March in New York this October, which I was really lucky to even be able to come because they, not because of me, they just by coincidence scheduled it at like one of 5 days that I was going to be in New York anyway during like the whole year. So I got to go by luck. And then they gave me a featured speaker spot.
Yeah.
I knew some of the organizers, like Diane Pageant and Conrad Shaw and
Diane's right there. She's right there.
Oh yeah, I knew them. I knew some of them. But I also got to meet James Felton Keith, who was there, and some other people who were brought in, like Michael Lewis and Scott Santons and other of my old associates. It was great. It was great to see hundreds of people on the street marching for UBI, and then there you are with a camera and filming, and you asked me some questions and stuff. You made this like what was like a 20-minute documentary. It was great. I got to say a few words in the documentary. That was really up there with having a punk band write a song about my book. That was like, those are the two things that really stand out as honors in my professional career. Much more exciting than getting promoted to full professor, which I figured that was going to happen sooner or later. But, a lot of people a lot of philosophers make professor, but how many people get, punk band writing songs?
Yeah. You know how I spotted you out of such a big pool of people? Because we had to walk from Harlem all the way to Bronx to cross the bridge and whatever. It was a long walk. And then I look around and I saw this person that has a sign on your back. Like you people usually walk with the sign on their hand, and you put the sign on your back, almost like when a person is running, they tape a sign, a number, but you had a big slogan about something UBI or something. So in your back, it was very funny to me. I've never seen that before. I always just see people holding it. And then so at some point, I had no idea who you were. I just walked up to you and I say, "Hey, how are you?" And then I'll start to interview you. And then later on, after that, when we got to the destination and you were one of the speakers, I was like, "Oh my God, I dumb lucked." I found Karl, on the street. I don't even know who he was. So it's awesome.
That's cool. Well, actually, okay. Some of you younger writers out there, this is, how you get the attention from the media. Be lazy, because actually the reason I had it on my back was because I want to keep my hands free. So I just had it on my back so I could, have my hands free and talk to people and stuff. So it was because I was lazy.
No, I loved it. It was really wonderful. So shall we do let's see, Hillary, despite poor people and made no. Oh, I was just trying to see if there's any questions. So let's do I usually do a rapid fire with my guests. Okay. Just kind of fun, and a short question and quick answer.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So let's do it. Favorite sports to do?
I'm bad at playing favorites, but if I had to pick one, I'd say bicycle riding or hiking in the mountains.
Okay. Sports you like to watch?
high school basketball, college football, and I used to watch professional baseball, but not so much anymore.
All right, so you already answered me kind of like that, but I don't remember. What is your favorite music genre?
Punk rock, ska punk, Celtic punk. I also like classic rock and a big mix of pop stuff. I listen to really all kinds of pop music going back to the 1950s.
Great. What's for dinner tonight?
That one's too personal. Pass.
Okay. How many languages do you speak?
I'm an American. I speak one language. My wife is very unusual as Americans go. She speaks 3 languages. I realize that's about average for people from the rest of the world, but
Wow.
I'm not proud of that. I made attempts to learn Spanish, French, and German. And as my wife will tell you, when I try to speak to a foreigner, often those 3 languages and maybe some Portuguese or Italian comes out as well.
Yeah. So when you are United States, do you, where are you registered? I know Louisiana's primary is July 11. Are you going to do it?
Yes, but I think we had our primary on June 20th.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am registered here, and I'm very ashamed that we couldn't make it back in time to vote. And I didn't set it up to do vote by mail or absentee voting. I'm really ashamed that I didn't vote. I wanted to vote. Now that it's decided, there was nothing holding me, no lesser of 2 evil things holding me back from voting for Yang. I really wanted to register a vote for Yang and some down ballot stuff, but I couldn't.
Oh, I'll never forgive you.
I could have, asked for an absentee ballot, and I didn't.
Yeah. So I'm sure Yang will forgive you. I am taking you out tonight. What would be the first drink you order?
Assuming any infinite number of drinks are available, it would be a hand-drawn bitter, which is a type of ale that you pretty much can't get out of Britain. But drinking the hand-drawn ales, that is my favorite drink. Many different kinds of hand-drawn ales, especially the bitters.
Favorite cuisine.
Favorite cuisine. I don't have enough favorites. I like so many different kinds of food. I can't even answer them.
Okay. Sweet tooth or not?
Yes.
Ice cream flavor.
Vanilla.
That's a classical one. I love it too.
And it's really good. I mean, it's popular because it's so good.
What makes you wanting to meet that stranger again? Meaning, once you meet someone for the first time, what makes you want to meet that person again? In a more intellectual way, okay? Not like dating.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Since I got married, this is a much better question than before, because I actually you get these married man powers where you're not totally distracted by is this somebody I could hook up with? It's amazing not to be thinking about it. I'm actually paying attention to everything they say. It's really cool. And I guess good conversation, open-mindedness, that's pretty basic, but it's short answers. So.
Yep. Wow, Fred the Felon is here.
Oh, I think I follow him on Twitter.
Yeah. Hi, Fred. Let's see. Okay, so I have one more. I asked this question to Andrew Yang last year. In June of fundraising. I said, who are the 3 persons that you would like to have dinner with, live or dead? Why? That's a long one. Sorry.
Wow. I'm so bad at superlatives. I am so incredibly bad at superlatives that it's really hard for me to come up. Maybe. So the first names that came up to me were like Bertrand Russell, Thomas Paine, and Harriet Tubman. That's just what came to my mind first. Actually, I would have to think about the name of every human being who's ever lived, and then carefully evaluate them to really say, so that's just what came to my mind first. I don't even know if those people are fun. I know they're really interesting people, is what they did, but are they fun people to hang out with dinner with? I don't know. Okay, you're muted. I can't hear you.
There's poor connection.
There you go. Now you're back.
Yeah. All right. So
Yeah.
so the last
What
one
were you saying?
is there's a couple of people actually ask you a question. I'll let them ask you a question. Hold on one second. I have a question for you. I'll save the last one, which is very simple.
Okay.
Let's see. Karl, you did a great job at our march. Diane said, yeah.
Well, you did a great job making it happen in 30
yeah.
cities around the world. And
yeah.
I don't know
yeah.
how they're going to do it this year.
Yeah. Wash hands. Oh, okay. Diane said wash hands. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I can do that.
Yeah. Question. There's actually what? Okay.
Oh, somebody asked something about free time. Do you want to do that one? That's not a short answer question, but
me? No.
Kavanaugh asks, can Karl please discuss the relationship of basic income to leisure time beyond free time? Well, economists define leisure as any time you're not making money. That's how economists define leisure. And then if you look at that, the most important things we do are leisure time, such as taking care of sick people, taking care of the elderly, taking care of the disabled, taking care of children, but also building a life that you love. And basic income can help free people to figure out what is important in their life. Most of us spend so much time making a living that we seldom think about really what are the things that really build my life. And we try to build our lives around our career. And not everybody can do that because most of our jobs are actually just some boring stuff that is, maybe it helps a little with the world in general, and maybe it actually is counterproductive if you're like, working in some toxic industry or something. There's a lot of those. So often we feel like we're doing nothing or very little in our jobs, and really, and it's almost never as inherently as important as what we do in our personal life. So trying to construct a society where not just the independently wealthy, but all of us can have lots of leisure time is something that progressive people have been trying to do, since they forced us, since the enclosure movement and the colonial movement forced us all to be employees. I'm nothing against people being employees, but to make it so 99% of the world has to make that the focus of their life, I think is horrible.
Okay, so Paul recommended I need to end our meeting in 5 minutes. Okay, I have another appointment. Paul was asking twice, says, does Karl have any recommended book? I guess recommended book in what subject? I guess UBI? Are you talking about UBI or are you talking about what? So I'm not sure.
Do I have a book that I would recommend of my own?
I don't know. Like a book list to read.
UBI
book. Yeah.
If you search Karl Widerquist selected works, you will find near the top listed all of my books. The one that I think is most important to me is the Power to Say No book, which is officially called Independence, Propertyless, and Basic Income: A Theory of Freedom is the Power to Say No. I wanted to call it Power to Say No, but the publisher had this idea that a really long, throaty title would be better. That That is my favorite book that I've written. Or do they mean books by other people?
I don't know. So she said, I assume it's a she because I couldn't say. Is it Paul, or she, or he? I was actually standing behind you on stage when you were talking at the UBI march.
What are those people in that picture? Cool.
Yeah.
I've wondered who those people are. They stood up there for the whole thing.
Yeah, you were walking around on the stage. You were so animated and so passionate and so articulated. It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, thank you so much, everybody. And I'm going to put all the necessary link in the below, and please subscribe this channel. And thank you all for watching, and thank you, Karl, for giving us your wisdom, your knowledge, and your professorship. we're getting a great lesson from you, and it's really honor to have you, Karl.
Oh, thanks. That's really kind of you to say. I love what you're doing on this channel, and the documentary that you made of the UBI march was a great record of it. You did a great job on that. I look forward to seeing more documentaries from you in the future.
Okay, thank you. I'll keep producing. All right, everybody, I'll see you until next time, and be safe. Did I ask you a question? Coffee and tea. The last question is a coffee or tea?
Decaf coffee. Some of my favorite meals.
I'm so wimp.
Some of my favorite meals are yogurt with all natural cashew butter in it.
Oh, you're vegetarian.
And I'm not eating that tonight. And eggs and like a good omelet for breakfast. A good omelet with lots of stuff in it, lots of cheese and stuff in it for breakfast.
Oh, so you're not.
I also like vegetables, just big plates of vegetables sautéed in, I don't know, in something, but big plates of vegetables.
Yeah.
Not starches, vegetables.
I would love to meet your wife next time.
Oh, well, you can look at her. That's her right over there.
Where is the wife?
You see her?
Hello. Hi. How are you?
That's happy.
She's on the phone. I'll meet her next time. So let's meet when you come to New York again, please.
Oh, looking forward to it. Yeah, I can't wait till the travel resumes and I can go back to New York and other places. I'll see you there.
Yeah. Okay. Take care, Karl, and be safe.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. You can just click Leave Studio when we're done. Okay. There's a button. I don't know if you.
Oh, got it. Doing it. Yep.
Bye.